Welcome to the ACC Panic Room alongside Lauren Brownlow, Joe Ovies. Complete carnage set in Chapel Hill, Lauren, with North Carolina losing to a 1-4 Florida State team. I get that they have some talent, but they haven't been able to get right. They certainly look right with Jordan Taylor at quarterback this afternoon against the Tar Heels. These dual threat quarterbacks continue to be a problem for UNC.
Yeah, and Jordan Travis is really good against UNC anyway. And he probably should have been FSU's primary quarterback most of the year anyway, considering their issues. Considering their issues on the offensive line, you have to have a quarterback that can run away. But he's played well against UNC both times they've played. I mean, really, in a lot of ways, this game was very similar. I mean, big second quarters both times were plenty for Florida State. I mean, that's but this time Florida State actually kept it up in the second half and did what it needed to do. Whereas last year it was like, and I think you can see, and I will maintain that this is true, that Florida State is better than it was last year. I mean, bar is low, but
the bar
that was my issue though.
I think the thing about Florida State is we saw them against Notre Dame, and we thought, hey, look, there's life there, right? There was this close game against Notre Dame. Now, watching as we're recording this right now, Virginia Tech is up on Notre Dame, and Notre Dame has been kind of going through it, and it all came to a head with their loss to Cincinnati the previous week. And maybe Virginia Tech's a little bit better than we give them credit. Maybe Florida State's a little bit better than we gave them credit initially. Maybe Notre Dame isn't as good as we thought they could be this coming season. And I think after that, Jacksonville State lost people, and the Wake Forest lost people completely checked out. And as Julia joked about this week about the Syracuse game, that was like the gut check time. Like, are you in this or are you not?
Right.
And it looks like the win against Syracuse, even though it was an adventure, at least gave Florida State a reason to fight for the season. And we saw that come to a head in North Carolina, who now drops to 3-3. So
I was going to say, I think we both owe each other a bit of an apology here because
both. Excuse me, both.
Well, I'm not saying that mine to you isn't a little bigger because you've been saying since the beginning of this year that some of the issues we've seen with UNC have been a bigger problem than they initially, and you're right. You were right. Like, clearly you were right. So I don't mind saying that when that's the case. Like, and that does appear to be the case. Like, but what were we saying this week, right? Like, you were saying, like,
you were right because I was of the mind after they beat Duke with the way Florida State looked, the way Miami has more to do with the fact that I think Manny Diaz is not.
How thankful is Manny Diaz for Mack Brown? Like, the first time in his life, he's probably this thankful for Mack Brown.
Right. I was looking at the next two games before Notre Dame game on the road. It's at home. People kind of check that on UNC, watch them get people back on the bandwagon. Even Mack Brown talked about, people getting back on the bandwagon after the Duke win. I thought maybe these next two home games would be easier than anticipated. You're right about Florida State. I know you've been hammering the whole Mack Brown's never beaten Florida State thing. I think you and I both agree that Florida State's a lot more talented, and there's something there for Florida State. We just haven't seen it put together. But you were right about this one against the Seminoles.
I mean, look, I've been around this for a while. I've seen them against Florida State in all kinds of settings, over the years, right? And generally speaking, when they beat Florida State, it has not been meaningful. And anytime they've needed to beat Florida State for any meaningful reason, they haven't been able to do it. I mean, just facts. Like, that's how it has generally happened, no matter what. But here's the thing that's wild to me is that Mack Brown is probably going to retire almost certainly. I don't know when the next time they play Florida State is based on scheduling, but they're almost certainly going to retire. He's almost certainly going to retire without having ever beaten his alma mater, in spite of playing probably two of their worst teams in the last 50 years. And so I don't know, maybe this is the kind of alum that some UNC fans want me to be. I don't know. Is that I'm just saying, the ones who are like, you should vote UNC higher. You went there. I'm like, hey, what?
Sure, maybe that it is. Maybe that's what it is. All right, so we got to talk about the game. The game played out in a similar way for North Carolina. In they've looked in the other losses. The defense has been suspect. Their offense is not as skilled as it was last year, and Sam Howell's trying to do too much, right? There's just not a lot going right for the Tar Heels. And I feel like Mack Brown is going to have to make some assessments to relate to the coordinator position. My guess is that Jay Bateman is going to get the most amount of heat with the way that the defense has looked.
I don't think so. Not from what I'm seeing.
You think you think Phil Longo has more heat on him, given the way the offense has been played out? Because I think the offense is easy to understand. And what ended up happening with the offense is that we did not appreciate just how good everybody was last year, and it masked a lot of issues. So now, when you essentially have Josh Downs as the lone dude, and you're left with Sam Howell being your best running back, a lot of the issues that were masked on the offensive line and elsewhere have presented themselves.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure that I'm going to put so much on Philongo.
Yeah, and when you look at their numbers, they actually, I mean, you'd be surprised. Like, you would think, based on like what what the offense looks like this year versus last, that it's like way different. It's really not. The numbers are freaking forward. It's really not. But the problem is that
clearly lacking. The one that's clearly lacking is a deep play threat. In just have one.
Well, I was going to say the situational issue. And that, I think, is where people have a problem. The fact that, and Mack was asked about this after the game a little bit, the fact that they have the ball down 18 and they take almost 6 minutes to score a touchdown. It was almost like they were bleeding clock on purpose, which Mack was alluding to a little bit in terms of like resting the defense. But it's like, okay, but you still have to score fast. And then they didn't get the onside kick, and they weren't able to get the ball again. Like, it's... Mm-hmm. They didn't have enough time to be doing that kind of stuff. And so, that's the kind of stuff I think people are talking about. It's like, why aren't you, they were talking about on the broadcast, like, why aren't you running a hurry up here? Like,
totally. Look, I'm not trying to absolve Longo in that situation. I just think
it might not have been his decision. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, yeah.
I think it's the defense that has probably getting the most amount of heat because it's been mistake filled. Okay. They were by our dose today. And there's the other thing too, which is an overall coaching staff problem, which is the mistakes after mistakes after the mistakes. And we're giving Florida State multiple opportunities. That's a total issue with the coaching staff, which of course gets to the top guy, Mack Brown. And look, I like Mack Brown. He is really good with the media, and that's why they were in the preseason top 10. You got a returning quarterback that people are hyped with, and everybody loves Mack Brown. That's why they get the hype that they get. However, I've missed a pattern so far this season with Mack Brown, and it came to a head with his post-game comments. When they lose, he's basically been saying the same thing. I heard him with Jones Angel on the radio post-game, and he basically sounded like he was reading from a prepared talking point. These were just prepared statements that he said in the past. Nothing was new. He almost sounded bored saying them. And I get that you're just after a bad loss and the season hasn't played out the way you thought it was going to play out. Now that you're 3-3 and your coast expectation shot, but there was like zero, to use Coach K term, zero verve behind a coach that has to be absolutely disappointed with the way these things have played out.
Of course, okay?
There's no piss and vinegar in Mack Brown right now. I get that he's older and he's seen everything, but man, if I'm the head coach and I had this kind of expectation going into the season, I'd be pissed off. Nothing like that really presented itself. Instead, what's been happening with Mack Brown, and this is where I have a bigger issue, we've now gone to it's not our fault that we were ranked so high. Maybe you guys were the one who got all of this wrong, right? Like, now we're blaming the preseason expectations on how we talked about the Tar Heels. I'm really at a loss here. Like, this is I think you guys shared this, if I'm not mistaken, if I can pull this up on screen here. My computer's being slow today for some reason. But this was the quote from Mack today. What does he say here? The expectation for us to be a top team were wrong, so I guess we should be all critical of the media for picking us high. Excuse me? No. That's not how this works.
Oh, I had a little cringe moment. And actually, I probably wouldn't have even tweeted that quote if he had sort of laughed after that, because I get it. And I know he was meaning it sarcastically, somewhat, right? Like,
but there's saltiness there. There's saltiness there.
Yes, 100%. And so I'm just kind of like, dude, because the thing about it is he had opportunities to more artfully deflect that expectation, because obviously you don't want to be like, well, that's insane. We shouldn't be preseason X. You know what I mean? Like, he did a better job of it, I thought, actually, last year before they played Florida State. And I stuck up for them in that instance because he did do a better job of being like, we're not top 5. Like, this is nuts. You know what I mean? Yeah. But this time he didn't do that as much. I do understand it. You want the hype there. It has helped with recruiting. I understand all of that. Like, I get there's a reason for it. What do you want to say? Like, no, we're not really actually preseason top 10. Like, that would be a terrible thing to say. So I understand. But at the same time, there's
a weird underlying sense of salt against Mack Brown that I would love to ask him about at some point.
Well, he's talked about this before. He said he was a bad loser during the end of his tenure at Texas, and he wanted to learn from that and not be a good loser anymore. And I think this was maybe one of those moments where it just hit him a little too hard in the feels.
But even in the wins, he's been somewhat salty. Like after the Duke game, he talked about, well, people are complaining about, I guess it's a good problem to have that we scored 31 points. Like these are questions that I'd love to ask, or 38 points. These are questions I'd love to ask Mack Brown at the end of the year when things have cooled off about, did you think that, and I've been curious about this, in that I was not, and this is something that you and I might have disagreed on after the Georgia Tech loss, where I was curious, where's the heat, right? You had this expectation and people were really buying into what you were trying to sell to get people back into football, and you've missed on those expectations. And I was wondering where the heat was, right? And after they won,
you found it out, didn't you?
No, I found it today. It absolutely came out today, and I think I know why. They'll let you. Finally came out today.
They'll let you lay one egg too, but if you
ding. That's exactly it.
One egg is fine. 2.
Start the season against Virginia Tech in a loss on the road. That's an understandable one. Laying an egg at Georgia Tech. Okay, there's your egg. This one against a 1-4 team, that has nothing to do with preseason expectations.
The thing about it too is that that's a team that beat them last year. And that was an embarrassing loss for them.
Yes. And this is
an embarrassing loss for them.
This was even more embarrassing than last year.
Yes.
This is more embarrassing for them than last year. On every level. At home, revenge factor, you already had your egg, and the fact that after you beat Duke, you're talking about, I hope the bandwagon's full. They can't find a seat. That kind of stuff. Bandwagon for what? You beat Duke. Like, okay, cool. Congratulations. Duke's got its own issues. And
we've got to name that game next year or next week something. The Miami UNC Bowl. The didn't meet expectations, but I don't know. Because that's the thing. Manny Diaz needs to be sending Mack a freaking fruit basket because
it has to be.
Otherwise, it'd be there.
This whole thing has been disappointing on all fronts, and I'm disappointed with the way that it's getting handled so far by Mack Brown. And it's almost like I don't know what he expected, that maybe he would get more of a pass, but the honeymoon is completely over. And
he's been really media savvy, I think, up until that, and that was just a moment where I think it got away from him a little bit.
Just a smidge. Well, it might have gotten away from just a smidge there, but what's completely gone from them is the Coastal at this point. So right now, North Carolina can go through the rest of the season playing spoiler to the rest of the Coastal to add to the chaos, but with 3 losses in that division, ain't happening.
So now, now at the beginning of this year, I was like, they're not going to win at Pitt. Now they are absolutely going to win at Pitt, aren't they? And ruin Pitt's entire season.
Oh, yeah. Easily. That's totally.
See, this is how you guys do this. This is how you have to do it from now on. Pick the outcome that makes the least sense and go with it. I'm just telling you.
Go. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. We'll see y'all next week.